Hello and welcome to the Faces of Africa Pocket Edition, where we dissect and discuss the topics covered in our weekly documentary show, which takes you through the continent's history, cultures, and major issues through exploring great personalities. This week on Faces of Africa podcast, we're taking you to Libya. We're telling you a story of the life of Mummar Gaddafi through the people who live in Libya. The documentary is called Ghosts of Gaddafi. My name is Fathiya Nur and I have here
Kimani Mungai.
Mummar Gaddafi is very well known in Africa for a lot of reasons. Around the world, a bit controversial also. What do you know of him before I tell you what I think?
First of all, Mummar to me is a 21st century or 20th century strongman in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
He's a giant in the African scene, but sadly, I don't think Africa will remember him because the way it finally ended for him.
Yeah. I mean, growing up for me, I've watched stories or like news pieces about Mummar Gaddafi, and he's one of the leaders in Africa that I actually really liked. And I think he had ideas that were good for his country. But at the same time, he was a bit dictatorial, and I think those are one of the things that people didn't like, especially the West. In fact, I don't know if you've seen the clip of where one of the US president calls him the mad dog of the Middle East. Have you seen that? Honestly, I think that's a bit detrimental. What do you think?
It depends on... history will judge him differently.
Mm-hmm.
But calling him, of course, a mad dog of Middle East or Africa is quite demeaning, I agree.
Definitely.
And I don't think also the Middle East guys agree. I don't think he's in the Middle East, do you?
No. I mean, okay, let's talk about the location of Libya.
Mm-hmm.
Libya is in North Africa.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing with Gaddafi, he was very keen on trying to unite the Arab countries.
Yes.
And when that didn't work out, he tried to have the United States of Africa under the Africa Union.
True.
He had that dream, but till now it's not been actualized. Yeah. So I think Gaddafi had a very good idea of how he wanted to rule Libya and how he wanted to see Africa. Also, I think another interesting fact about Gaddafi is he had a book called a Green Book. This book is what he called like a philosophy of how to rule Libya. And it was printed to millions of Libya to have it for free to understand how Libya is supposed to be operated. But a lot of people didn't like that also.
Okay, just to take you back on your United States of Africa point, do you think that's one of the main reasons or among the reasons he was taken out? Because I think the West or the world at large, given Africa and its resources, natural resources, I don't think there is a lot of interest in it being united and having one voice.
But how has Libya been after the reign of Gaddafi?
Libya, from what I've read and even watched, was a very, or still is a very tribal and ethnic country. So those divisions are now very prominent post-Gaddafi, and we've seen even with the transitional government. It's of course Anarchy, where you have also very many factions, the small militias trying to run their small territories, and also these other factions being supported by even foreign powers.
Exactly.
So you find post-Gaddafi, there's still a war, because in 2014 they failed to agree on an election or an election result who's going to take over, and they descended into civil law again. When
the revolution happened, people actually thought that Libya is going to look different and all, especially when the transition government came in. But like you said, there's a lot of clan and tribal issues in Libya that has been dividing that country even after 2014. Libya is a very, very rich country when it comes to oil. And actually, when you take a look at history, that's one of the things that used to be so profitable for Libya and used to put Libya on top, especially in Africa in terms of even the GDP. And I think that's one of the key interests that foreign powers do have. What are some of the things you think he would have done differently not to be in this state? Because I think he had good ideas, He had good ideologies, even for Africa uniting. But at some point, I think maybe he was abusing power. There were, claims as that. Even when he became the Africa Union chairman in 2009, he still wanted to become the same chairman again in 2010.
Yes.
So maybe he had an issue with abuse of power.
He's a guy who stayed so long he didn't learn to read the times and the signs. And say his time is up, he's done all he could and let others take over. And that's unfortunately how it ends for most of these autocrats.
So for the audience, I think what they're going to find in the documentary, which is an hour, so it's going to be a 2-part documentary,
Yes, 2
is
parts.
The first part, of course, is you're going to see the life of people in Libya post-Gaddafi. You're going to see a story of women who are trying to be entrepreneurs and they're trying to kickstart their life. The second part of the documentary now takes you deeper into the state of the country in terms of military and the rule there. So I think it's going to be interesting for the audience to see what's coming up, right?
I agree.
Right, let us know your thoughts on the life and the rule of Gaddafi in the comments below. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Fathiya Nur. Remember, you can watch this documentary on our CGTN platforms. On Sunday, it runs live at 12:30 East Africa time, 17:30 Beijing time, and 9:30 GMT. On Monday, it will be uploaded